Hey Ray, good to see you again.
Yeah. All right, we're live on YouTube as well. Well, sorry for the technical difficulties. Thanks for joining. Hopefully, we obviously took a month off in August because it tends to be a slow month with a lot of people on vacation. So it's good to resume our regular programming. We got a lot of good updates, including a product sneak peek that we kind of snuck in there. Thanks, Igor, for joining us for that as well. So we'll get things going. Just a quick reminder on community code of conduct in case you weren't aware. You can check out the details in our Cube.js repo. Actually, we'll talk about dropping the JS, but we still have JS in our repo for historical reasons, I guess. But you can take a look at the details there. What we'll talk about today, we have a lot of community news, especially a lot of events that are upcoming. So we'll spend a decent amount of time talking about workshop we just had a couple of weeks ago, plus we got several that are coming up. And then we'll probably spend also a good amount of time with Igor about some of the exciting work that we have going that's part of our roadmap. And then we got Bruce and Alan and folks from Teneri team talking about Golang client they developed for Cube. Obviously, it's open source, which we're very, very excited about as well. So we'll jump straight to community news. Obviously, we canceled the monthly call last month, but I still uploaded a recording of a Q3 roadmap update that you can take a look at if you haven't had a chance to do that. It's on the community calls playlist. I think there were 200 plus people who already viewed it, so people were able to find it. So I'm glad to see that. But if you want to look at the details of the roadmap, it's in our Cube repo. If you go under projects, you'll be able to find the epics we have for Q3. There was a blog post about replacing Redis with Cube Store, and then the second epic Igor will talk about streaming pre-aggregations, but you can look at more detail and go back and watch the recording and let us know if you have any questions on Slack and other channels. So that's what we did last month in lieu of the community call. And want to talk about a couple of blog posts. This went out, I believe, last week, Igor. So we stopped mentioning .js for a while now. Probably well over 2 or 3 quarters, but we sort of made it official with a blog post from both Artyom and Pavel. If you read the blog post, I've been at Cube for almost 2 years now. It sort of reminds me of some of the evolutions that we've gone through. First of all, it's been like this for a while now after Cube Store, especially. We have more code in Rust versus JavaScript. That's one. And then the way people used to deploy Cube used to be like NPM 2 years ago, but now that's not really the default case anymore. And we'll be supporting additional languages like you see in our roadmap, like YAML, for instance. So we're evolving as a company, but take a look at the blog post. It sort of reminded me of the evolution that we've gone through. So you'll see more of .js being dropped from a lot of our posts and websites. So if you haven't seen that announcement, please take a look at the blog post. The other one, this is sort of, I feel kind of embarrassed to do this. It's somewhat self-serving, but I contributed a blog post to opensource.com. It's been about a year since we had a sort of an enterprise or commercial offering of Cube Cloud, but open source is still part of our DNA. And I wanted to sort of re-emphasize that in a blog post. I think it was about 15 months ago, I made a blog post on opensource.com to sort of introducing what Cube is. And I thought this was a good way to sort of follow up. Being open source is obviously beneficial to us, and we think it's a key differentiator for us. But there are a lot of also key benefits for users that I wanted to talk about, and this was part of the inspiration came from a lot of the community members that I talked to. So feel free to take a look, and you can leave comments on the blog post as well. Just wanted to show that really quick. Next item is we're really excited about our new events page. I think Igor, Adnan, and I can sort of relate. We've been using like old technology to sort of build like a event websites. I mean, it was very manual and very taxing. So want to say kudos to our colleagues in growth engineering team who sort of revamped the events page, which gives me a great excuse to sort of show off our upcoming events. So here's a new web page, event page design. I mean, one of the like weird restriction we had was like we can only have like 2 event tiles, but you know we got like at least 4 events that are coming up, so we can sort of showcase all of that, not just monthly calls, but several webinars we have coming up in the next few weeks. You know, past events are also listed, and then you know if you click on any of these tiles, it just takes you directly to the past events page if you wanted to look at contents or agenda, etc. So we're very excited about the events page. And one of the, you know, I think I may have mentioned this to some of the community members, like we're, in addition to doing our own webinars, which we've been very happy with, we're also partnering with our friends in different communities. So starting on the 28th, and Igor, you're a speaker for this, and this is sort of follow up to, I think this was a monthly call discussion back in July. I think our friends from Firebolt came and gave us a quick overview of Firebolt's integration with Cube. So this is sort of a follow-on to that, and it's a 60-minute event. You know, how you can build, you know, fast analytics stack with Firebolt, and you know how Cube plays a part. So that's an exciting one that we're looking forward to on the 28th. This was originally scheduled actually for tomorrow, but due to speaker availability, we had to postpone it. So hopefully this doesn't cause like a whole lot of interruption for people who had already registered. And shortly after that, the following week, we have 2 events that are coming up. One is with our friends at Preset, and basically, you know, building an open source alternative to Looker. This is apparently even in superset community, this became a pretty interesting topic of discussion. So we're happy to have both Igor and Srini from the Preset team talk about how you build an open source alternative to Looker. So that's coming a few days after the webinar with Firebolt team. And last but not least, Anand will be teaming up with our friends at Altinity, and we'll talk about building analytics stack with like ClickHouse, MySQL, and Cube. So you can take a look at the goals of the workshop and et cetera, et cetera. We just added a lot of details. And the other thing I wanted to point out on the events page, I mean, the registration is a lot simpler. You just have to answer a few questions, and you're not going to be taken to a Zoom like a registration page, which didn't necessarily have a necessarily good or appealing user interface. So that should be pretty streamlined and straightforward. And let me just pause here, and like Adnan and Igor, anything you wanted to add about like these events? I sort of went over it really quickly, but anything you want to add to talk about the workshops that you'll be participating in, feel free to add your thoughts here.
Well, yeah, I think that you nailed their, you know, the topics, right? What I would like to add to that at every webinar, we'll team up with the folks from other communities, from other companies like Firebolt and Preset and Altinity, right? And we'll have the chance to show how not only Cube works, you know, in some particular scenario, but we'll deep dive into how Cube integrates with respective tools, you know, to power those scenarios. And you'll have the chance not only to tune into what I will be delivering, right, or what Adnan will be showing, but also to learn from the experts from other communities. So yeah, really excited about that. This is something new to us, or at least this is something new to us to deliver at scale, right? So a lot of exciting collaborations. And yeah, I hope everyone who listens to this community call will tune in to these webinars.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so let's go back to the slide deck here, moving right along. So wanted to recap our last workshop that Anand delivered back a couple of weeks ago. You know, if you missed the workshop, if you go straight to the event page, this gives you an opportunity to show how the past event page looks like. The links to recordings and the slides are pretty prominent. I mean, it used to be sort of buried down below. That's another improvement that we made. So you can take a look at that, look at those materials if you missed the workshop a couple of weeks ago. Some quick stats about out of about 200 people registered, we had about 60 plus attendees, and when I checked like earlier this morning, we already had like a 230 views. So I'm very happy that people found the content useful, and the scores that we got on the post event survey. Obviously, not excited about this like a 1 score here, but person did leave detailed feedback. So obviously there's a room for improvement, but overall score was about like a 4.25 or 4.3. So just wanted to share, be transparent about the feedback and other topics that was kind of interesting. I mean, real-time data applications. I mean, this is something Igor will talk about in a minute. That's a pretty popular topic along with like a data modeling. So this, thanks for your feedback, and people who provided feedback and gave us your address. We'll be sending out our newly designed Cube socks in a couple of weeks. We're unfortunately not immune to the supply chain issues that everybody's been having. So there's been some production delays and issues, but hopefully we can get these out pretty soon. It's amazing how supply chain issues are just hitting everybody, including people building software. So cool. And let me just pause here. Let me stop sharing. And Igor, I'll let you give us a quick sneak peek about on product.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Thank you, Ray. Okay. Happy to carry on. So yeah, I think that everyone who attends, who tuned into this community call is in a unique position to know a little bit of what we'll be proudly announcing next week. But anyone who is regularly tuning into these community calls and who is aware of what we had in our public roadmap would probably have no issue guessing what I'll go into talk about right now. So yeah, next week we'll be announcing a few product updates, and that's something that was a major focus of their engineering team here at Cube. So yeah, this is, we have for a few months already we had this issue in our roadmap that that was labeling the kind of the streaming support and streaming pre-aggregations, and the implementation of that and how we are going to add that feature to Cube. It's kind of through two different features which have the same goal to provide the developers and engineers building with Cube is the ability to work with real-time data sources, with streaming data sources, and build applications that have like nearly zero latency, near zero freshness of data. And the two features that will deliver this thus are going to be the so-called union with source data and streaming support. So the first one is basically going to be an implementation of the so-called Lambda architecture. And one might wonder, what does that even mean? so yeah, I believe, I believe the shortest way to convey the idea here is that is, by example, how it's already implemented in Cube. So if you were about the inner workings of the caching layer of Cube, right? You know about the pre-aggregations feature, and basically this is a great way to get like sub-second latency when querying your data. However, the freshness of the data might vary, right? So you're able to configure how fresh the data in your pre-aggregations would be by setting the refresh key, which might be just something that instructs you to update your pre-aggregations at set intervals, like every minute or maybe every hour, or maybe every 8 hours, something like that. So when you're querying pre-aggregations which are configured like that, you know that you might not be getting the most fresh bits of your data in those pre-aggregations. Well, obviously you can configure pre-aggregations in a way that they are updated based on a fairly complex SQL expression. However, still for big data sets, even with partition pre-aggregations, you will still there are chances that you will still be getting not the very fresh data, but the data that has some that just reflects their state of your data set a few minutes or maybe a few seconds ago. So the Lambda architecture basically is the idea that you might not only be batch processing the data, well, like when you build in pre-aggregations, for the whole data in your data set, or for a number of partitions, but also in parallel you'll be processing your data in a real-time way. So there the new data which is being ingested, it will be analyzed and processed in parallel with the data which is batch processed, and then you'll be able to access the data. So this is what we are going to implement. This is what we are going to announce that we've been implementing in Cube. So you have pre-aggregations which are built in batches, but also processed but the additional data ingested and processed real time, and then you're able to Cube will be internally union the batch process data with the new data in your data set. So basically you'll be Cube will be union pre-aggregations with the source data, and that would basically allow you to keep the sub-second query latency that the Cube provides, and ensure that your apps have near zero data freshness. And one might wonder, why the name, why I'm calling something Lambda architecture. Well, basically this is because this is how your data pipeline looks like, right? So we have batch processing, we have real-time processing, but yeah, I should have reversed this, or mirrored this left to right, because obviously the data should be flowing left to right. Anyway, so this is for the first feature, and the second one is I think it's perfectly aligned with this notion of real-time processing. You probably remember that a few months ago in May we announced Cube's integration with Materialize, which is a streaming database, right? And that enabled a lot of exciting use cases for Cube users, right? So with Materialize, you can ingest data from streaming data sources, from event queues, and then, well, fully aligned with the name, Materialize provides an ability to define the materialized views on top of those streaming data sources. So, and Cube can query Materialize to get the most up-to-date metrics based on the data. And now next week we'll be announcing our integration with KSQLDB, which is, well, something that's really similar to Materialize, but specifically built by the team that also built Kafka, right? So this is a material like streaming database for Kafka that you can that you can run on premise, or you can run it in Confluent Cloud, where you might also have your Kafka cluster and practically do the same. You might be ingesting real-time data into Kafka and then instantly performing metrics calculations with KSQLDB and then accessing that from with Cube and then ingesting the data into Cube and then delivering it to your data apps. So so what I've prepared today is just a small demo app that hopefully will work flawlessly. So what do we have here? Here I have a list of, well, almost 100 members, with almost 100 members on Twitter, some folks which, who routinely tweet about data. I can also tweet something myself, like, let me say, hey, Cube community call participants, something like that. Let me tweet. I guess it should appear here on top of the list, but yeah, here it is. And here's the demo app. A lot of things going on here, but I'll show you the way. So basically, what this application does. There is some Kafka producer in the background that every 15 seconds or so fetches tweets from the Twitter API and then produces them into Kafka and then materializes them with KSQLDB, and then Cube is reading the data from KSQLDB and delivering that data to the front end with WebSockets. So and what is calculated inside KSQLDB in Cube is just a set of metrics of the tweets in that list. So yeah, as we can see here, well, there was a tweet which was published a few minutes ago, right? And here it's delivered here in the last tweet. We see the average retweet count, average like count, and the authors which we've been most productive. Here, I'm not sure why I don't see the tweet that I posted myself. This is there should be some delay problem on the Twitter side, but as you can see, some of the metrics, they are live updated, and this is updates that are coming all the way from Kafka through KSQL to Cube, and then through the WebSocket connection here to the front end. Yeah, okay. So I'll probably wait for another like 3 seconds for my tweet to appear. Okay, it's not here. Anyway, probably it's just because we are fetching the data from Twitter in batches. No real-time support, on the Twitter API side. Well, at least not for free. This is something that Twitter would like to monetize. Anyway, yeah, there is a link. There is a link here, and probably you can check it out after this community call as well. Also, just in line with this streaming support update that we'll be announcing next week, we're doing this kind of pre-announcement today, and we're going to announce our next workshop that would have the focus on the building real-time applications that are ingesting streaming data. Well, this is something that we'll have on October 13th, and I invite everyone to register and tune in. And yeah, this will be the moment where I'll be slowly handing the mic back to you, Ray. But just wanted to say that, yeah, again, in line with what we are doing for streaming support, we are going to appear at the current 2022 conference, which is which is, well, I would say this is a spin-off from the Kafka Summit, right? So this is a conference by Confluent. So yeah, feel free to not only to, if you're attending this, feel free not only to attend the sessions, but also come and say hi to our booth. So that would be, that would be it. A lot of tweets here. Yeah, and with this, I'm turning this over to you, Ray.
Cool. Thanks. Actually, we'll turn things over to Bruce, I guess, and just a quick note on current 2022. This is the first time ever that we're sponsoring an in-person event with the booth. So I think there'll be 10 of us that are traveling there, including our CEO, RTM. So if you want to come see us in person, if you happen to be in Austin that week, we'd love to see you. And with that, I'll turn things over to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Ray. Pulling up my screen share. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. I am joining the community call on behalf of Ternary, where we are super excited to unveil our first open source contribution, and we're really happy that we're able to make it to the Cube community. I'll start with a little bit of background about what we do, and this will help go into the inspiration for the client that we developed for Go. So at Ternary, we're building a FinOps native cost management platform to allow companies who spend a lot or a little amount of money in the cloud sort of get visibility into the amount of money that they're spending, be able to slice and dice it in whatever way they want. And then we also use both cost and usage data in order to develop recommendations and provide deeper insights to customers that they wouldn't be able to get out of the native console. We're built on GCP for GCP, and this will come up in our architecture a little bit later. But it is the case that we also have additional visibility into other cloud providers. The way Cube fits in, which is a major and super important piece of our architecture, is for serving cost and usage data from the database that we stored into the client. And you can see an example graph here from our app where we can show time series data for the amount of money that's spent over time for different GCP categories like compute, network, database, super high level things. And in particular, on this example, 411, there was an anomaly, which is something that we use Cube to detect as well. So our architecture diagram, which is what inspired the contribution that I'm going to describe to you today, starts with storing data in BigQuery, excuse me. We do all of our data processing via BigQuery, and we do our query execution via BigQuery. And then we issue queries to BigQuery via Cube, which we have deployed to Cloud Run. And in typical fashion from the React app, we request data from BigQuery via Cube using the official JavaScript client. But we also have the need to get data from BigQuery through Cube from Go, which is the language that we've chosen to write our backend in. So this is what I'd like to talk about today. We introduced a GitHub repo, Ternary Inc. /Cube.js-Go. And in this repo, we have built a version of the Cube client that is usable from Go. We've also taken time to introduce some official Go docs on the official Go docs website. And you can see that we have support for pretty much all of the things that you would expect, being able to specify the order for your queries, being able to specify different operators and different granularities. We have a way, of course, to generate and to pass a token to Cube, to create a client and to load that official data, and some helper functions as well in order to read that data. I think the best way to learn about the client is by way of example. And I'll start here with the first step, which is, of course, to instantiate a Cube client. And in order to create a Cube client, all we need is a URL, basically pointing to where you can find the Cube. Like I mentioned, ours is deployed to Cloud Run, and a token generator, or a way to just generate, your token with all of your security context and signed and all of that business. From here, in a way that anybody who's consumed Cube via JavaScript would be familiar with, we formulate a query. So you can see, as usual, we'll specify measures, dimensions, time dimensions. The most interesting piece here is that we're doing this from Go, and we can take advantage of the property of Go that it's strongly typed. Support for different kinds of date ranges and different granularities as well. This is the piece of magic that my teammate Ellen came up with in order to help us leverage the fact that Go is a strongly typed language. And in order to leverage that, basically, before we issue a query, we can instantiate two things, one of which is a type, being the results that come back from Cube based on the query that you issued. What will you expect to be in the results? And in particular here, we have the JSON struct tags. So based on the query that we wrote here, we know that each each element in the array of data that comes back from the API will have a JSON key myCube.measure1. This is, of course, just a tool example, dimension1, and timestamp. And then the beauty that we get here is that we get a Go type with 3 fields on it: cost, project, and timestamp. And each of these are typed accordingly as well, being float, float, string, and time, of course. The next thing we do before we issue the client is instantiate an empty array of results, notably of this type, queries result, that we defined here. And then it's really easy to use. All you have to do is call kubeclient.load, pass in your context. We'll pass in the Cube query that we instantiated before. And then in addition to that, we'll pass a pointer to the array of results that is currently empty. And then the load command, which is the meat of the logic that we have, is responsible for issuing the query to Cube. And if the result comes back in the first try, then we can take the JSON result and parse it into the array of this type that I mentioned before, so that when you're using the results later down, you can do things like results at entry 0.cost or .project ID, and you know that it's going to come back with the type that you expect. Whereas the initial version of the client that we implemented had just a blank interface, and you had to do all sorts of type checking, key checking, was a really big pain. And one additional note too is that this will automatically handle the continue wait behavior by reissuing the same query to Cube if necessary. We've been leveraging the client in production at Ternary for something like a month so far. And I'll note here that we built the client in order to, or with the effort, the intent to support the use cases that we have today. But as we come up with more use cases that we have in the future, or if the community, of course, wants to contribute back to open source, if any adoption, starts to grow, then of course we'll be able to add functionality to the client. It is not quite as fully featured as the existing JavaScript client. One example that we use here at Ternary is for budgets. And like you would expect from a budget, you can specify what parameters the budget encompasses, like if it's a set of project or if it's a set of SKUs or something like that, and the amount for the budget. Apparently this demo budget is for 140K per month for the astronauts team. We store these budget objects in a database. We leverage Cube server side, being from our Golang server, to issue queries based on the budgets to evaluate the status of the budget, to see how much money was actually spent compared to the amount that has been budgeted for this particular set of scopes. And we also compare that amount that's been actually realized so far to the amount that's been budgeted. And then we also use these numbers to do forecasting as well. And the budgets feature I picked as an example that I think is particularly interesting, because in addition to using the new Golang client that we introduced for this purpose, in order to do budget related things within the app, we also use the existing JavaScript Cube client side from the React app in order to plot month over month trends, which you can see here. Additional places that we use the Golang client from our Golang app is to generate and issue daily, weekly, or monthly reports, just to show how much money your company or your team has been spending recently. Also for identifying and generating recommendations and anomalies like the ones you see here, for like if you have a Kubernetes cluster and the node pools are super underutilized, or if the workloads you've provisioned are over provisioned, or for example, if you are a user of committed usage discounts and you're either underutilizing those or overutilizing those. This is data that we store in BigQuery and that we query via the Golang client that I'm talking to the community about today. If you have any questions, I can do my best to address those live. Additionally, you can feel free to reach out to me at BruceSW Ternary on Cube Slack, or of course, open an issue in the repo.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it, and congrats on your first open source project. So it's can be scary at first, but really applaud you folks for that. Let me see if you have any questions. I mean, JC, did you have any questions? Or there were a couple of chats, but
oh no, I'm just
I'm just cheering on.
I'm just following along. I just really like to Ternary reminded me of the ternary operator. I'm sure I get that comment like 3 times a day. So, but no, really cool to see a new client in Go, and kind of how some of the things you had to do to support doing it in a typed language. Very cool.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and let us know what kind of feedback you get from the Go community. I mean, from what I know, they're pretty like a passionate group of folks that I've met, and yeah, hopefully you get a lot of traction from the Go community members as well. So, cool. Yeah, and thanks for coming back. I think it was just a few months ago, Katie came and talked about creative ways that you're getting around, the 50K row limit on queries. So definitely good to have you back. Yeah, I'm just double checking the live stream to see if there are any other questions. It looks like that's about it. So glad that we're resuming the monthly call after a month off, and we'll do this again in about 4 weeks. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, guys.